Final battles, last surrender. 6. The final battles and the fall of the Confederacy. By early 1865, the Confederate States were on the brink of collapse. Years of war had devastated the South's economy, its infrastructure lay in ruins, and its armies were increasingly outnumbered and undersupplied. Meanwhile, Union forces tightened their grip, preparing for the final blows that would end the conflict. In Virginia, General Ulysses S. Grant kept relentless pressure on Robert E. Lee's Army of Northern Virginia. For months, the Union Army had besieged Petersburg, a critical rail hub supplying the Confederate capital of Richmond. The Siege of Petersburg, which lasted from June 1864 to April 1865, featured brutal trench warfare that foreshadowed World War I. By spring, Confederate defenses were crumbling. On April 2, 1865, Union forces broke through at Petersburg. Lee informed Confederate President Jefferson Davis that Richmond could no longer be held. Davis and the Confederate government fled, and Union troops entered the city on April 3, 1865, raising the American flag over the former Confederate capital. As Lee's army retreated westward, Grant pursued without pause. The two forces clashed repeatedly, including at Sailor's Creek on April 6, 1865, where thousands of Confederate soldiers were captured. Realizing the situation was hopeless, Lee sought to negotiate surrender. On April 9, 1865, the two generals met at Appomattox Courthouse in Virginia. Inside the home of Wilmer McLean, Lee formally surrendered the Army of Northern Virginia to Grant. The terms were remarkably generous. Confederate soldiers were allowed to return home with their personal belongings, horses, and sidearms. Grant's leniency reflected Lincoln's vision of reconciliation rather than revenge. The surrender at Appomattox did not immediately end the war, but it effectively marked the Confederacy's downfall. In the weeks that followed, other Confederate armies across the South surrendered. By May 1865, organized resistance had ceased. Tragically, just days after Lee's surrender, the nation was shaken by an act of violence. On April 14, 1865, President Abraham Lincoln was assassinated at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C., by actor and Confederate sympathizer John Wilkes Booth. Lincoln died the following morning, plunging the nation into mourning at the very moment of Union victory. The assassination cast a shadow over the end of the war and the beginning of peace. The United States faced not only the monumental task of rebuilding the South but also the challenge of redefining freedom, justice, and unity in the aftermath of such a devastating conflict.